Thank you all. I want to give three things up front. Two things happened on this campus and off campus in between the time I wrote this talk and the time I'm giving this talk. The first thing was Robin DiAngelo came to campus and talked about white fragility. And the second thing was Brett Kavanaugh. I also want to give apologies to any social scientists in the room or any social scientists watching. I'm a scholar of rhetoric, but your work on class and race and gender has informed me over time, and I'm going to dabble just a little bit in your territory tonight. And the third thing is this is not a story about bootstraps. It's going to sound at times like that. It's going to be a story about my grandpa. It's going to be a story about my past. But it's going to tell you why those things don't add up all the time. What can you tell me about this person in the picture? Do you think you can tell me one thing? Or two things? Or three things? I bet you can tell me a lot. That's my grandpa on his wedding day. When he was in 5th grade, he left his home in Tennessee and walked out of the mountains and got on a train. Rode that train to McAdenville, North Carolina, and got a job at a mill where he swept. He swept floors for a long time, worked his way up, and became the manager. And when he realized they didn't want to work that hard, he started his own tailoring business. And I can still remember the stories that my sister spent time sewing buttons on those polyester leisure suits that the women bought from my grandpa's tailor shop. Just about the time he was going to retire, he figured out he didn't have health insurance. I don't know how he figured that out, but he did. And he conned a job at the local technical college. And he worked there for 3 years until he was vested and ended up living the rest of his life with insurance. He was a complex man. And we'll talk more about him later. That's me. In kindergarten, I loved that shirt. Like, really loved that shirt. So much my mother had to wash it twice a week so I could wear it almost every day. Underneath that shag carpet are some shorts that are made out of denim and some boots. That was my outfit every day. Possible. At that time, we were living in Belmont, North Carolina, a mill town. We didn't own our home. My parents were wage workers that shared their rides to work. My uncle lived with us at the time, and I had no idea that these were distinguishing features of my life. They were just who I was. I shouldn't have. I was 5. But the not knowing is a privilege. In 6th grade, we moved to Memphis, Tennessee. When I was 6, not 6th grade. When I was 6, we moved to Memphis, Tennessee. I went to a 65% black school. I was taught by black women, African women, and white women. It's where I learned to read. It's where I learned to love words. In 6th grade, I had my first sip of alcohol. I should say, it's the first time I got drunk playing quarters with alcohol that someone had stolen at a corner store. I came home on a Saturday, went to sleep, and I was awakened by the sense that I had to be somewhere. So my parents took me to the basketball game I had to play, and that was a hazy evening. I could tell you 30 stories like that from my life. Choices I made that were not the right ones. But I'm here today, in this position, in spite of those choices. And I'm mostly going to believe that the fact that that is the result of me being white and male. We moved from Memphis to Cherryville, North Carolina, and that saved my life. My grandfather bought 2 trailers. We lived on 29 acres of land. My parents owned their first house, that double-wide trailer. Still own it. My grandfather gave me a copy of The Concise Life on Yoga and Walden. as if my long hair didn't estrange me enough from my peers, carrying around a book of yoga poses in a town of 3,000 people in North Carolina did a lot more. And so, when I think back to Cherryville, I think about it as the place where I first learned that people of different colors lived in different places. I lived in the country. All of the African American people in that town lived in a small area tucked to the west, and they called it freedom, without any irony. So I think that's where I began to understand my own privilege. And it's also where I began to interrogate the fact that there are systems at play that do this for us. My first teaching job was at East Lincoln High School. I taught in a single wide trailer. Those kids didn't care any more about the Siddhartha I was trying to teach them than I did about the NASCAR they watched on weekends. What bothered me most is they were living the life that was prescribed to them. And I didn't know how to help them. And so, I was a coward. I left and went and taught somewhere else. And I finished out my teaching career, and now I'm here. And again, I'll say, I'm here mostly because I'm white and male. I'm going to keep repeating that. But I am a feminist. I'm married to a feminist, and I'm raising two feminists. My daughter's favorite phrase right now is, Dad, gotta get this right, stop enforcing the patriarchy. I hear it all the time. We spend our dinner time talking about what it means to put blackface, what it means to fight a sexist dress code by wearing a shirt just short enough that you don't get sent home, but you're resisting it. But if you didn't know any of that was going on inside my house, I would fit just exactly in that neighborhood that I live. But we don't. And it's known every day. I was at a conference with a series of colleagues 2 years ago, and there was a discussion about privilege, and one of my colleagues looked at me and said, John, you're white and male. You know about privilege? And I said, yes. But it took me back. The next day, I asked that person, did you know that I grew up poor? Did you know that I didn't live on a college campus like you did? And I said something that I regret now, but still feel is true, is that I want to have conversations about people who know poverty, not through the lens of Marxist ideology, but from lived experience. And I think it's to the benefit of the status quo that we fight each other, those of us who want to change privilege. I listen to On Being podcasts on NPR. And last year, I traveled to and from Wofford College, mostly on Sunday nights. And one of the episodes was about two people working in two very different places. One doing inner city work with students, and one working in rural Tennessee. And about midway through the talk, they realized they were working on the same problem. They both had the same issues. And they said in that talk, what if those two groups of people got together? Wouldn't that be a revolution? Wouldn't that change our current political climate? And wouldn't it change the way we understand privilege? I was driving to work, listening to StoryCorps on NPR. I have to confess, I don't always listen to NPR. Most of the time, I'm listening to a playlist that my son Cody has made, music I have no idea. Or I'm getting my daily dose of Neil Young. But this morning, StoryCorps caught my ear. It was a conversation of two people, a man and a woman, who both attended an anti-Trump rally in Texas. The woman is telling the story of watching this man wearing a Make America Great Again hat, Make America Great Again t-shirt, holding a sign, and watching people try to light fire to his shirt, to his sign. But when they tried to take off his hat, she jumped. And what struck me was the fact that she said the reason why she jumped, she wore the hijab. And she knew what it was like and what it felt like to have something ripped off your head when you didn't want it to. Come to find out, that young man was homeschooled. He had never met a Muslim. She was from Baghdad, Iraq, and had moved to America at 10 years old. And they get coffee regularly. It's that kind of talking across difference. That kind of talking and bridging boundaries that will allow us to fight against privilege. I want to thank you for letting me share my story. I want to thank my wife for letting me do this. I want to thank my son and my daughter for listening to this all the time. And finally, I want to thank my students who listen to me and talk to me and interrogate these ideas almost daily. Thank you.